Our guest today is one of the true giants of the people development profession. Professor David Clutterbuck is the last fully active survivor of the pioneers of coaching and mentoring. He co-founded the European Mentoring and Coaching Council, which is also a pioneer in setting standards in an otherwise unregulated profession. He's influenced, and as listeners will hear, continues to influence the development of coaching and mentoring as a profession and practice that has such potential to bring about positive change. He has authored and co-authored more than 70 books embracing coaching, mentoring, developing coaching cultures, and talent management. He is a practitioner who brings an academic approach to his thinking and his work. These provide the lenses through which he explores the world of coaching and mentoring and how he views, with reason and logic, how the coaching profession will develop in the future. Professor Clutterbuck has continued to update and evolve his understanding of one of the most important concepts in people and organisational development today. Today, he shares this with us. This is a unique opportunity to learn from a true master of his craft.
Welcome, a really warm welcome, David, to this podcast. What we're interested in today is to explore your work around coaching and mentoring, because you can justifiably be considered one of the pioneers of coaching and mentoring. You and I are roughly the same age. I remember when coaching first started, and it certainly didn't look anything like the way we understand coaching now. So I've got two questions to start with. The first one is, what drew your attention to coaching in the first place, and how do you think it's evolved over the years?
Coaching didn't really exist, not in the way that we know it now. When I first got involved, I was a young journalist. I say young, but middle-aged journalist, working for McGraw-Hill. And I worked for a magazine called International Management, and my job was to go around the world identifying really good ideas and practice in management. Eventually, I became the editor of the journal, and one of the people that I met was a lady called Kathy Cram in the States. She'd done her PhD on what she called mentoring, and I wrote up this and got fascinated by it, and did some research of my own. And in 1985, both of us, the same month, she produced her book, and I produced mine. And really, that was the foundation in the States of what we might call sponsorship mentoring, which is sort of a mishmash of mentoring and sponsorship, and developmental mentoring, which is the mainstream form of mentoring, which was what I reflected in mine, coming from the European traditions of mentoring. Which really go back to the French cleric Fenelon, who was trying to in the court of King Louis the Sun King, and Fenelon basically was exemplifying the concept of learning dialogue, helping people to become wiser. So using your wisdom to help somebody else become wiser, and then the work of Timothy Galway, a few years before that, had sort of suggested that in sports, you could get people to learn more effectively if they weren't told what to do, but actually explored it, and actually really felt and encompassed it within themselves. So this non-directive style, if we can call it that, although there's no such thing as non-directive. When you decide what question you're going to ask, you've just directed the conversation. But nonetheless, this relatively non-directive style of helping somebody then became the rage in what became then coaching. Now, coaching up to that point had been, for its very short life, since the mid 1800s. Had been a very directive form of tuition, and only in the mid to late 1990s did it shift in terms of the literature and everything else to be a more non-directive approach. But we'd formed the European Mentoring and Coaching Council in 1991, had its first conference in 1992, and we then, after a few years, found these people called coaches who were saying to them, hang on, but what you're doing is what we're supposed to be doing. Now, and so rather than say, go away, we said, well, come and join us. And there are far more similarities between coaching in its modern form and mentoring than dissimilarities. The difference that we see is primarily one of emphasis. So if you think about all these forms of learning, coaching and mentoring in particular, what we're trying to do is to help somebody gain clarity so they can make better decisions. So there's clarity about what's going on for you inside. Who are you? What's your identity? What are your fears and aspirations and hopes? And then there's clarity about what's going on in the outside world. What are the opportunities? Where are your sponsors? How can you best employ your strengths? And coaches and mentors help people, coaching and mentoring help people have conversations that link that better understanding of your internal world with a better understanding of the external world. So automatically, that helps you to be clear about what you want and how you're going to go about it, and the resources that you have at your disposal to achieve this. So if you're a coach, you're going to focus more on the internal dimensions because you don't necessarily have that expertise, that knowledge of the situation that the other person is in, that a mentor has. So a mentor is like a coach, but they bring extra qualities, and they bring a deeper understanding of the environment and the world that the other person is attempting to build a career in, for example. But they give context, not advice, and there's an enormous difference between those two things. So context is information that helps you with your quality of your thinking, and advice is doing the thinking for you. And one of the great myths put about by coaches trying to justify what they do and put their price and what they do and charge people for, whereas mentors typically don't. Basically, that putting out the myth that coaching is telling you what to do or giving you advice is just not true. It's never been part of the package.
Yeah, I think it's like I wrote that kind of context, not advice bit down there, because I think that was such a succinct way of putting it in terms of helping somebody with their thinking. And I as a psychologist, sports psychologist by trade, but I'm very interested in obviously the internal state stuff. One of the things we would have seen in sports psychology, and there's an awful lot of crossover with sports psychology and coaching anyway, is I remember I did a master's degree in sports psychology like 20 years ago. And we didn't really talk about the person that much. It was kind of it was toolkits. It was kind of, you have this tool, you use, it was some pretty crap goal setting in fairness, and reasonable stuff on sort of mental imagery and concentration techniques and stuff. But it was all techniques and strategies. Whereas nowadays, like I run a master's degree in the same subject, and it's almost all a bit more about the person more broadly. We kind of say you can pick up strategies and techniques along the way. Is there more depth to that method?
I think this is very much in tune with the work of the Coach Maturity Research Group.
Okay.
And what we've been, firstly, we about 15 years ago, we started working in this whole area. What is a mature coach? What does it look like in terms of how people evolve in their capability as a coach? And we did our first studies by analysing data from coach assessment centres.
Mm-hmm.
What emerged from that was what we described as a stage model, Although in the more recent research, we've questioned whether it is actually really a stage model. But what we found was 4 different mindsets. So you had a mindset which was basically about doing coaching to people. So you've got the GROW model or something like that. GROW stands for get rich or more. But you've got this tool, is this hammer, and you've got to hit everything. Everything's got to be a nail. And people outgrow this, and they become much more what we call more process based. And so they have a wider toolkit, and they begin to and they're still doing coaching, but they're doing coaching with the other person. There's more of a contract and a real dialogue. Then we found that there was a mindset that said, actually, I can leave all that behind. It's not about doing, it's about being. So I'm integrating who I am with what I do. And then the 4th mindset that we found, we called the systemic eclectic, because it was basically seeing the person, the client, in their own systems, and relaxing and letting go of goals, letting go of all the tools and techniques. And if you do use a tool or technique, very, very deftly using it, and almost imperceptibly. And what we find is that the energy, the amount of work that's done at that first level, where you're trying to apply a model like GROW, all the energy is going for the coach trying to make the other person think and so forth. Whereas with the systemic eclectics, the energy is in the room; it's between them, and it's quite different. So we thought that you had to go through one stage to the next to get it, and it would be like a stage model. In the more recent research, we've gone out and we've interviewed dozens of highly experienced coaches about their learning journey, and then done an IPA analysis of what actually what does this mean? And we're not able to prove the stage model theory. What we are able to prove is that there are a number of movements that happen which do relate to doing less and being more, letting go of all the tools and techniques. You pick them up as you go. They are not the core of what you do. It's the being and its experience, and it's the conversation, the relationship that actually count. Now, if you put this into the context of AI can already, and artificial intelligence can already duplicate most of what a GROW model level coach does. They can follow the process, and it can have a bigger range of questions to choose from and clues to go from. It can fake empathy better than the human. So we're looking at coach education and saying, hang on a minute, what does this mean? And we have a paper coming out shortly, which is what if everything we thought we knew about coach education were wrong? And the answer is basically it is wrong. That we have to make coach education much more experiential, and having people learn from their experience and then backfill with tools and techniques as they learn, as they find that they need them and they're valuable for them.
Yeah, it's interesting there, because working in a university, we have these conversations about AI quite a bit, and
yeah,
I'd be of the mind that I think what I really like about it is it kind of forces us as humans to go, well, I need to be better than AI. What can I offer as a human that an AI system can't offer? And it gets away from this sort of what I would call IKEA coaching, this idea of sort of flat packed tools that you can just take and anyone can assemble and get these kind of results and stuff. So,
and a lot of the ICF competencies in particular, which are not based upon university principles or academic principles, come from a different philosophy. They would tend to tie you down to doing it this way. And what we're learning from going around the world is actually there is no one right way of coaching. It's totally different in different cultures. So I've just been in the Solomon Islands, and I've been listening to how they coach there. And one of the things that's really important in coaching there is to be able to link it with tradition, with parable. A story that they tell. So they find when somebody has an issue, they'll try and find is there as part of our culture a story that we can actually use to as a sort of foundation for exploring this, and then they'll go beyond that. They'll actually, in some cases, they will say, well, they're actually associated with this story. There's a dance, and the coach and the coachee may actually get up and dance together in order to build that quality of rapport and to act out the story. And you can see where this is. You won't find this in any of the competency frameworks, and yet it's this adaptability. It's the fact that we are here to support the person in a way that's going to be most effective for them. And if they come from a different culture than a North American or West or European culture, they may need a different approach.
Yeah. Smart goals isn't going to cut it. I'll let Doug get a word in, otherwise I'll.
But what strikes me, I knew John Whitmore quite well, and often spoke at conferences with John. But I totally agree with you that this notion of being prescriptive about this is how you coach, this is the one way of doing it, is fundamentally flawed. And it's very consistent with the work that John and I are doing, because we've been exploring an aspect of what you've just described. It's called the mental toughness concept. But one of the things that we've really understood is that we are all unique. There is no one way. There's no sort of silver bullet, and there's no one size fits all approach to developing people. It has to be a very individual connection. So my question to you is, I love what you're saying. I really, really do. But I work with an awful lot of coaches, and I think you're going to scare a lot of coaches. How's that going to work?
Well, I think we're in the midst of a big shakeout in coaching, because the grow model level coaches are under threat. So they've got up their game in some way. And a large part of this is actually becoming more confident and competent in dealing with complexity. So yes. The first stage of this is looking at how do you help the individual client understand and work with the complexity of their environment. But we go on from there. Well, we've identified 10 levels of complexity in coaching, all the way from simplistic helping somebody to deal with a particular issue or develop a skill, all the way through team coaching, through coaching teams of teams, to coaching the meta system.
Right.
So yeah, and so what we've got here is an exciting journey where at every level of increased complexity, you can add greater value to your clients. Now, I think most coaches are there because they want to add to support people. They want to add value. It's not just a job. It's this thing between, is it a profession? Is it a vocation? Or is it something in between, I would call a provocation? And I think it really is this provocation is what it's at. And if it's a provocation, then we want to add more value to the world around us.